Welcome back to the Roofers Growth and Wealth Show. I'm your host, Ken Rewerts, here again with my co-host, Scott Graves. Say hi, Scott.
Hi, guys.
Well, today we're talking about roofers. As they have these great years, these down years, but large influxes of cash, they don't often know what to do with it, where to put it, and whether or not their company is financially healthy and in the right spot to be able to go the distance. So today we're talking about a checklist that can help you understand just that. And it's a downloadable from our website, but we'll be going over the finer points together today and see whether or not, as you follow along, your company is financially healthy.
The information provided here is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered an individualized recommendation or personalized investment advice. The investment strategies mentioned here may not be suitable for everyone. Each investor needs to review an investment strategy for his or her own particular situation before making any investment decisions. Investment advisory represented above and investment advisory services through Portside Wealth Group LLC and SEC Registered Investment Advisor. Portside Wealth Group LLC and their representatives do not provide tax or legal advice. Each firm only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempted from registration requirements. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission, nor does it indicate that the advisor referenced in this disclosure has obtained a particular level of skill or ability.
Roofers, listen up. Contracts, cash flow, chaos, and control. This is the Roofers Growth and Wealth Show. Real talk, real numbers, real roofers getting rich. You're on the Roofers Growth and Wealth Show. Stacking skills, stacking deals, stacking dough. From shingles to scale, watch your empire grow. Welcome to the Roofers Growth and Wealth Show. Let's go.
Okay, here's our checklist. Roofing Financial Checklist. We put this together. This is that free downloadable from our website. And we're going to go over these points together and just have a conversation about it, Scott and I, all these sections here. And as you follow along, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can follow along and watch what we're doing. If not, we will make sure to explain each section and read through it. So let's start right there at the top left, retirement planning. There's 4 bullet points or 4 points that you can check off on the checklist for each of these sections. I'm going to go ahead and read them, and then let's have a conversation about it in each section. Okay, Scott? Sound good?
Perfect. Yeah,
Okay.
we want to zoom in on that.
Yep, let's go ahead and zoom in. Stream
Nice.
close-up. Here we go. All right, there it is, retirement planning. So the first bullet point is I am building personal wealth outside of my roofing business. Second is I am creating financial security beyond the success of my company. The third one is I am setting aside money today so my future is not dependent on the next storm season. And fourth, I have a plan for how to use my personal wealth in retirement. So what are you thinking, Scott? Where do you want to start there?
Well, first thing I'd want to say is that, retirement planning might feel a long ways away for a lot of you guys, but it's not. There's no such thing as it being too far away to be thinking about it. So a lot of times, as business owners, we get caught in the everyday, in the day-to-day of just keeping things afloat and finding ways to grow. But having a solid retirement plan is, really something that the earlier you start, the easier it is to actually pull it off. So just thinking about this section, I think number one is one of the first values that this checklist brings, just to make sure that, hey, these are actually things that I ought to be thinking about, even if it's not, in the next 5 years, or even if I plan to never retire. We've got clients who love their jobs so much, love their business so much, they never want to retire. Well, the fact of the matter is that at some point, you're going to want to, you want to have the option to hang it up, even if you don't necessarily choose to do so. But the ability to do it, you ought to be planning for that at some point.
Yeah, I agree. I think about these conversations I've had with roofers over the years, and I have yet to meet a roofer that was so passionate about laying tile, right? Or about fixing decking, or any of that stuff the roofers do that they thought, man, that's why I want to be a roofer, so I can do that stuff. All these guys, they got into it to create financial security for themselves and their family, right? That's what
Right.
they're doing this for. But I think somewhere along the lines, we forget about that, and we think that, okay, it's all about the business, when we forget that the business is there to serve you and your family and your personal life. And so what we do is we really believe in this, and this is sound financial principles and what we call parallel wealth, right? Building the business while at the same time building your personal wealth. So that when
Right.
you have those down years and you've invested all this money in the company and you put it all back in and you have a down year and you have to let these people go and you have to downsize again, you look back and go, well, that was a waste. What did I get out of that?
Yeah.
Nothing, right? So it's very important to be setting aside at least a portion, at least a little bit here and there, to your personal wealth as you build your business, so that you're not always just dependent on everything going perfectly and well every single year in your business.
Yeah, for sure. There's really the more you if you're not thinking about it, if you're not planning about it, it'll get away from you, you know.
Mhm.
And it's not even just about how am I going to survive when business isn't good. It's about this is actually long-term money, okay? And you don't want to and we'll probably mention this, refer to this issue a couple of times while we're chatting today, but the idea that your business is your retirement, it's one of the most dangerous attitudes you can have when you own a business because sure, it might be your retirement, but you're going to put all your eggs in that one basket. I mean, you might, who knows if the timing is going to be right, if somebody's going to be interested in buying your company when you want to sell, or is it going to be a good year for sales and for roofs? um, the year that you want to sell it. Because if you all of a sudden have a year where, or the year before, where all of a sudden you're showing your P&L is tiny, then people aren't going to be that interested in buying your company. So don't put all your eggs in that one basket. Get that parallel wealth on the outside so that you are still okay, your family is still okay, regardless of what happens with the business.
Yeah, I totally agree. In order to do that, it sounds easy as we talk about, oh, yeah, it's simple. But often when we talk to these guys, we don't know our numbers. We don't know what I can set aside, how to set
Right.
it aside, how that works. Even having sound financial fiscal responsibility and practices to make sure that you're being responsible in the good years, so that when the bad years come, you're still taken care of, and so are your staff, right?
Right.
Your employees, and that you could be setting aside money for yourself. That's so important. We're going to talk more about knowing your numbers in a minute, but yeah, very good. Anything else you want to discuss in that section, Scott?
Um, I think having a plan of the fourth bullet sometimes gets overlooked. It's not just about how much you make and how much you set aside for your future, retirement or expenses. It's also about having a plan as to how you're going to use it. I mean, there's a lot of times, any financial advisor will tell you that there's the accumulation phase, right? Where you're making money, you're saving money, you're putting it away, you're investing it, you're growing it. And then there's the distribution phase. And it's a completely different mindset because now all of a sudden you aren't thinking about how am I going to make money? It's how am I going to pull money out in a way that I'm never going to run out, because running out of money is a serious concern in retirement. So you got to make sure that you have a plan for how you're going to take it out. It's a massive mind shift, and it's a tough one for a lot of our clients. And so got to make sure that you know how you're going to use the money later on in a way that's going to be stable. It's going to make sure that you're not going to run out before you die.
Yeah, absolutely. I talk about this often, but when I was a carpenter, I remember one time I was installing these shelves, and
Yeah.
when we'd gone out there, we forgot to get one of the shelves edge banded. Right, so it's a little bit of makes the edge of a particle board or any kind of board really if you need to, but makes it look nice. Anyway, we get out there and we're installing this thing, and that guy that I was with thought, you know what, we don't need the edge bending. Let's just go ahead and take some seam fill that you use to plug nail holes, and let's go ahead and paint the edge of the board, and it'll look just fine. It'll look just fine. So we start doing that, and we install this thing. It looks horrible. It's atrocious, man. So we realized that no, that's not going to work. We got to take this back and do this the right way. But it's amazing in finance how often we use the same tool for everything, right? For
Right.
accumulation and for distribution, the same type of account, the same type of investment, and so that just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So we got to make sure we're using the right tool for the right job. Okay, very good.
Exactly.
Let's go ahead and move on to exit planning. All right, here are the four um, key takeaways or 4 bullet points here. Number 1. I know my numbers. Number 2, I have a plan in place if something happens to my partner or key employee. Number 3, my business can run 30 days without me. That's a tough one, right? Number
Yeah, it
4,
is.
I have an exit plan that allows me to sell my business on my terms. All right, Scott, where do you want to start?
So this obviously, kind of comes directly from the conversation we just had about retirement planning, right? And maybe you're going to exit when you retire. Maybe you're an entrepreneurial kind of guy where you're going to exit when you're going to have the company for a few years and then exit and go on to something else. But each of these, regardless of when you're going to do it, each of these is incredibly important. Knowing your numbers, okay. If you intend to sell at any point, you have to know what your numbers are, and you have to know how to put yourself in a position where those numbers are going to make it attractive to a buyer. Whether
And
that's
not even selling, just investing, right? Or doing
just
anything. Yeah.
investing. Yeah, you got to know what and if you don't know your numbers, you're just, I will tell you, you're like 85% of our clients, that our business clients who come to us
Yeah.
they often don't know what their numbers are. So it's important to get your handle on that. Um, the second bullet is actually that's another one that we see quite frequently. So this has to do with, you have a partner, and in most states, if that partner dies, then their shares of the company are inherited by their spouse, right? And
Mhm.
so if you don't have a plan in place, then you're going to be, and this happened to a client of mine recently. Well, it was a few years ago. I happened to call him one day and just to check in, see how he was doing. And he said, "Oh my gosh, are you calling me because of what happened?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Well, it turns out that one of his partners, there were three of them, one of his partners passed away of a massive heart attack at 41. And left behind a wife and three young kids, all under the age of 10. And, you know, she now owns a third of the business. She doesn't want to be involved with the business. What she wants is cash to take care of her family. And the business partners don't really want to be in business with her because she doesn't really contribute anything. Not because she's, you know, not a very smart person. She just doesn't know anything about the business. She hasn't been involved. And so it turns out that so what they had to do is they had to buy those shares from her, and it had to be over a 5-year, basically a payout. So their cash flow was hamstrung for those 5 years as they were trying to get her paid off. And so immediately what we did is we set up a buy-sell agreement with the two remaining partners, so that if one of them was to pass away, they wouldn't be stuck in the same spot. So having a plan and then funding that plan is incredibly important, so you don't
Yeah.
get caught, and nobody thinks they're going to die, but yet it happens every day.
And the only time you wouldn't need that is if you really are looking forward and want to work with your partner's spouse. Maybe they're even better than the partner, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Oh,
Hey,
who knows? Who knows?
individual
Going
situation.
going back to I know my numbers, that first one, I think about it can be a daunting thing. We all know this. We hear it at all the roofing conventions. Know your numbers, know your numbers, know your numbers. But it can be daunting. And so bringing in a partner, somebody that can help us do that is not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign that I'm not a good business owner. We don't have all the skills ourselves. We need to surround ourselves with people that can do it. In fact, we are partnering with fractional CFO group that can help our roofing clients do this. Bring in
Exactly.
somebody to help you do this, help you know your numbers, to keep you on track and keep you honest. Right, that's really
Right.
important there.
Well, and
Okay,
knowing what are your EBITDA numbers and what can you do to increase them? That's kind of included in that I know my numbers piece.
yeah, absolutely.
So
On that fourth bullet point, I want to talk about that one a little bit. I have an exit plan that allows me to sell my business on my terms. We always hear about the private equity, the roll-ups, all that kind of stuff that happens in the roofing industry. And it's interesting, private equity, this relationship is so funny to me with roofers because it's kind of like that mean, really popular girl in high school that was really attractive, very beautiful, and everybody talks about, oh, she's the worst. I hate her. She's so mean, right? We all hate her until one day she shows a little bit of interest in you. You're like, oh, all of a sudden I love her. Holy cow, do I love her? She's amazing. Man, she's going to go to the dance with me. She's the best. But yeah, it's kind of what private equity is to us, isn't it? We can't
right.
stand private equity in our space. It's hard to compete with them. They're undercutting us. They're everywhere. It's hard to compete with them until one day we want to sell to them, and then we want it. Man, we hope they think we're the prettiest girl at the ball, kind of a thing. So, but having an exit plan that allows me to sell my business on my terms means when you get to that point with that private equity company, instead of going to them with open arms saying, "Please take me," all of a sudden you don't have to. And the only way to do that is to have something outside of that, a parallel wealth, to have your retirement nest egg built up
Right.
on the side of your company, so that if the private equity market isn't good, if they're not giving you the kind of rates that you want, or the purchase price that you want, whatever that might be, the terms that you want, you can say, it's okay. I'll wait. I don't need to do this now. I can wait on this. I don't have to sell now or ever because I have that parallel wealth. Having a plan in place allows you to do that. And I tell you right now, one of the best things you can do to increase your sell price is not needing to sell.
Absolutely.
Having that leverage, right?
Best negotiating position you can be in.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of connected to that, before we move on, the third one, my business can run 30 days without me. Believe it or not, for a buyer, that's a huge deal in a business. If a buyer can say, you know what, the owner has set this up in such that we don't really need the owner around. The business can run without the owner. So all of a sudden it's like the transition to a buyer is much more smooth. So having the right people in the right places, having the right organization of your company, the right processes in place so the business can run without you, believe it or not, is another really important part of exit planning. It's a really important part of negotiating and having a business that's sellable.
Yeah, I like that. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, but keeping those key employees, the one guy, the one gal who just,
Yeah,
man, they can
totally.
run things without you. But oftentimes that guy or that gal that's really good, they decide, no, I can go do this on my own. So they leave and they go start their own
Right.
company, and you go, oh shoot, my exit plan, it just blew up. Right. Or I can't go on that vacation anymore for 30 days because they're gone. I need to stay here. Right. But we'll
Right.
talk about that in a minute, how we can keep those people. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to tax strategies. All right, first bullet point is I am saving on taxes everywhere I can. Second is I have a tax strategist, not just someone filing my taxes. Third is I am taking advantage of retirement plans that help reduce taxes and build long-term wealth. And the last one is I have strategies in place now to protect myself from taxes in the future. Okay, Scott, take it away. Where do you want to start?
Okay. So my mantra, as you know, and as all of our clients know, is that we all have a patriotic duty to pay as little in taxes as possible. Uncle Sam, first off, he doesn't know how to use money in an efficient way, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But let's keep the money in the private sector where it can actually do some good,
Where it
which
belongs.
means
Absolutely.
exactly, which means in your hands, right? Because you know better how to use that money to benefit yourself and your family and your business than Uncle Sam does. So absolutely, we want to be saving taxes on, in every possible way. A lot of times, our clients, when they talk about saving on taxes, they're getting advice from their CPAs, and it's good advice to go out and spend that money on, go buy equipment or something like that, or buy. Usually, it's something that's a depreciating asset, right? Because you can depreciate the value of the asset against your taxes, and that's kind of the idea. Um, what we would suggest is that, sure, that can be useful if you need the equipment anyway, but it's a good idea to be looking at at putting your money away in a tax deferred way on appreciating assets. Okay, so some way you can reduce your taxes and put your money into something that's going to grow over time, as opposed to depreciate.
What a novel concept, right?
Shocker.
Saving on taxes and being able to grow an investment. That's fantastic.
What?
It's crazy, just crazy enough to work, right? That second one there, that I have a tax strategist, not just someone filing my taxes. This can cause some confusion sometimes. You ask somebody, they have the tax guy, and they say, I have a tax guy. I see
Yeah,
him
I got a
once a year.
CPA.
He helps me
Yeah.
file my taxes, asks me some questions about my company, and bada bing, bada boom, I'm good to go. A tax strategist is a little bit different, right? They are that
Right.
CPA, somebody that will sit down with you and give you some ideas. Hey, you're running it like this. Have you ever thought about doing this? Having that fractional CFO also can feed into this and really help there.
Right.
A good
Yep.
fractional CFO will have some ideas there too, be able to really dovetail into the kind of work that we do as investment strategists, investment advisors, to help them, with their tax strategy as well as their investment strategy and those appreciating
I'd
assets.
I think we need to take just a second, Ken, and talk about what a fractional CFO is.
Yeah,
I'm not
let's
sure
do
that
it.
we've defined that term. So fractional basically means that they're on contract. Just like all your other contractors that are working with you only pay them for the work that they do. Okay, so rather than having to go out and hire a CFO for $150,000 a year, you can actually pay for a CFO that is an independent contractor who comes in, looks at your company, and can do all of that CFO work without you having to hire somebody full time. So it's an incredibly efficient way to get a lot of the financial stress, the strategery, um, that we all really need as small business owners. So having a fractional CFO can be an incredibly good way to kind of leverage that financial strategy. And it's not something that we do personally in our business, but we have a partner who's just amazing and very familiar with the roofing industry, and they're fantastic at it, and so it's a really important way to do it. So basically, think of it as an independent contractor CFO.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, that third bullet point, taking advantage of retirement plans that help reduce those taxes. J We don't need to get really in depth on these. We can later. We can do this in a different podcast, different
Yeah.
episode. But these are things that everybody's heard of, like an IRA, a Roth IRA, a 401k, a solo 401k. If you happen to be just a solo guy out there doing your thing,
Hmm.
there's cash balance plans. There's lots of different ways that you can take advantage of investing, taking some of the assets in your company and tucking them away for yourself and that parallel wealth
Hmm.
for yourself and your family, and also get a tax break at the same time.
Right. Well, and there are obviously limitations, because the IRS does set up some rules around those, but if we use the right strategies, you could potentially be putting away hundreds of thousands of dollars
Hmm.
pre-tax.
Hmm.
So it's not, you don't have to just go with the traditional IRA, which only allows you to do 8, or the 401k, which allows you to do about 35. There are other strategies that you can use to really bump up the amount that you're putting away pre-tax.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that final one there, this one, I want to talk about, give a little story and a little example on this, that I have
Yeah.
strategies in place now to protect myself from taxes in the future. And what we mean by that is, man, the roofing industry, the cash flow, the income, it is ebbs and flows, isn't it? There's the feast and famine. So I was talking to a roofer. We were not too long ago that said one year they did about 600,000 or so, and the next year they did about 3 million. Right? It's just because they had one big storm came through, and all of
Right.
a sudden everybody and their neighbor
And that was a
was
relatively
as
small shop. That wasn't even
yeah,
a really huge shop. This was,
exactly.
yeah.
And any company, when you go from it's such a big fluctuation in revenue, oftentimes you don't have the plans in place or the strategies in place to protect you during those times. And you might think it's kind of weird to think about protecting yourself from high income, but you need to. Because you know what happens when you get high income? A big boost in income is a big boost in taxes. And so we need to have those strategies in place before that happens. So you know what you do when that time comes to make sure that you can keep more of that money than Uncle Sam does.
Yep, for sure. Good explanation. I like that.
Anything you want to add to that section?
No, I think that's great. Again,
Okay.
let's just keep your money in your pocket. That's really what it's all about. You know better how to spend it. Let's pay for the things that Uncle Sam does that we can't do for ourselves. Like police and fire department and whatnot. But for the things that you can do best for yourself, let's keep that money in your pocket.
Amen. All right. Let's go ahead and move on. Key employees. This is our last section. Okay. Number one, I have a plan in place to protect my business if I or a key employee cannot work tomorrow. Next, I have identified my future leaders. Next is my employees are incentivized to help me grow the business. And the last one is I have quote unquote golden handcuffs plans to keep my 1099 contractors. All right, Scott, what do you think?
Yeah. So there's a lot of there are. This is probably one of the most important things. I mean, we really, our greatest resource in our companies is our people. You know, to lose a key employee, it's incredibly expensive because not only are you having to find somebody, take the time to go find somebody to replace them, but you also have to pay for the time to train them, to train them up. And even if they're already fantastic at their job and you have just the perfect person, your company has processes, has ways of doing things, culture that are not immediate, that take a little bit of time to adjust to. So number one, protecting your business from things like, again, we talked about how, sometimes people do pass away. Sometimes people get sick or they get injured and they can't do their job anymore. Sometimes people, somebody comes along and is like, "Hey, I'll offer you a little bit more if you come do this. If you come do this for me, right?" And all of a sudden they're like, "Well, they got to do what's best for them." So the incentives for them to stick around are incredibly important. So to get into just a little bit of detail, and this doesn't have to be terribly expensive, because we want to make sure that the cost is commensurate with the risk. Okay, so the risk of someone who's 25, super healthy, the risk of them dying is not very high. So we don't have to spend a lot of money, making sure protecting the company against their death or disability, but we want to make sure that they're covered. So we just want to make sure that you're not spending more than you should on protecting your company, but having that protection in place is incredibly important. And then your future leaders. This comes down to what we talked about earlier with, your business being able to run itself. Are you setting up your future? Have you identified your future leaders? And then are you setting them up for success? Do they know what success looks like? Do they know that they're a part of your future plan? There comes a point where it's a good idea to let them know, to talk to them about that. It's not immediate, but when they've been around for a while and you trust them, it's important that they understand that that's what your thought process is. And then how are you incentivizing your people? Are they being incentivized in the way that best motivates them as an individual? These golden handcuffs plans. So how those work is you can actually incentivize your key employees to stick around. You can say, "Hey, I've got an extra benefit for you and it's here for you, but in order to get it, you got to stay with the company for X number of years, 3,
Mhm.
5, 10 years, depending on what you think is best. And then if they leave before that time, you get to keep all that cash that you set aside for them." And it's a legal agreement, so it's not just a handshake. It's a legal document that you sign, that they sign. And so they know exactly what they have to do to get it. And you can design it the way that works best for your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Those golden handcuffs, it really does describe it well. It's
Yeah,
something they love to see, but man, you do too if they leave. So you win either way. They either stay with
yeah,
you, help you build, incentivize you, help you grow, or you get the asset that you built for them that they decided to walk away without, right? So
exactly.
that can be helpful.
And
I-
and they can be set up for, you have to be careful when you're doing this for 1099 contractors, because you don't want to mistakenly have them reclassified by the Department of Labor as an employee. Okay. So it's
Mhm.
really important that you
Do this right.
do it right. Yep. Don't try to do it on your own. Do it right. Make sure you have somebody who's helping you out that knows what
Yeah,
they're doing.
these things can be complicated to set up, but if you work with somebody like us, we can help you do it. We take the complicated out of it. Just make sure it works
Right.
correctly. In fact, a lot of these ways to protect your business for key employees, for yourself, all that kind of stuff, is using things like life insurance, like a disability
Hmm.
insurance. And sometimes you
Hmm.
want to set it up where the company is the owner. Sometimes you want to set it up where you're the owner. It just depends on who it's set up for, who it's set up to protect, and who it's set up to protect against. Right. So
Exactly.
there are some aspects here and some details that are very important to get right as you do it. But if you do it right, you can have a great setup for yourself and your employees.
Yep.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yep.
fantastic.
And
Anything else you want to cover there?
by the way, you as the business owner, yeah, thanks, Ken. You as the business owner, you are a key employee. Okay. So don't
I'd
forget
say
about
you
yourself.
might be the most key
You're the
employee.
most key employee.
The most key. Yeah. Well, great. Well, I think we covered it all today. This is the checklist. It's a really big help for anybody looking to just make sure they are checking all these boxes, literally, to make sure their company is healthy financially to go the distance. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us today for our Roofers Growth and Wealth Show. Please remember to like and subscribe. It really helps the algorithm get us out there to be heard by more and more people and to be able to help more people as well. And also, just for those that would like a copy of this checklist for free, you can see a link to this checklist in the show description. And as always, build it to use it.